Sally, you have had a very successful corporate career before you became an author. Was writing something that you always wanted to do, or something that you came into kind of later in life?
I always wanted to write. Always. I think my first book that I wrote was Sally's Book of Languages, and it had 4 pages. And the first page was French. The first page was English, then French, then German, then Latin. I managed to fill in 3 of the 4 pages with some version of the languages. But the urge to want to express myself by writing is been there for as long as I can remember.
How did you find the switch from corporate to writing, and how did you actually make that? Was there a tipping point, or was it something that kind of built gradually over your life?
Oh, I love that question. And I was never cut out for the corporate world, let me say that up front. And one day, after a particularly difficult week, I was working ridiculous hours and a lot of responsibility, and at the time the only female on an all-male board of executives. I was driving home in tears and going past a university where I knew you could do creative writing higher degrees, and literally talk about changing the lanes of your life. Hopped into the lane that didn't take me home, turned right into the university, and went into and found a lady who happened to be one of the professors of creative writing, and cried a lot and said, I just need to do something to provide a structure for me to write. And then that led to a scholarship. And here, long story short, here I am with my first book. So changing the course of my life in that moment where literally I felt like I was heading in the wrong direction. And the fact that I'd had that awful week was one of the best things that could have happened, because it propelled me to start setting up a life of writing.
Let's talk about this novel, your debut novel, One Illumined Thread, and what a debut it was. What sparked the idea behind this? Because it is so unique. It's nothing like I've ever read before.
That really means a lot to me. Thank you so much. I was in Europe researching my doctorate, took a wrong turn at the Uffizi Gallery, and ended up before what felt to me before 2 women. It was a life-size painting, about 2 meters by 1.5 meters. Later, of course, I realized that it was the Virgin Mary and Saint Elizabeth. But at the moment of that meeting for me, it was me and the 2 women I've come to know in their Aramaic names, Elisheva and Mariam. For all the busyness of that gallery that day and all the muddiness of my mind, it was just me, Elisheva and Mariam. And I was struck to stillness and silence by the manner in which the elder Elisheva was looking at Mariam. Something in that deference of eldership, that sense that her whole presence was there. It just gives me skin tingles as I speak about it still. I couldn't even articulate what it was. The words weren't there. Just this overwhelming sense of, my goodness, this, what I'm here now feeling and being part of, this sense of eldership, of protection, of women being there for women. This is what I'm yearning for. It really struck me in my chest, and it just seemed like something in the meeting, in the nexus of that moment across time, deserved expression. Hence the result is One Illumined Thread.
Sally, along with art and humanity, faith is a driving factor in this book. And the book is obviously full of biblical references. As we know, Elisheva is based on Elizabeth, John the Baptist's mother. Can you share more about what you drew on when writing about faith? Your personal experience with faith, or?
I really love this question. And this is something I haven't had the opportunity to share as I've been travelling around for festivals and publicity and promoting the book. Many years ago, when I used to do, and I lived in Melbourne, and I used to do the washing up in the funny little annex kitchen at the back, I'd put on Radio National, The Spirit of Things. It was a wonderful program. And one day there was a session on saints. And the thing that stood out the most for me and has really come all these years later in life as a fundamental thing I return to for my own sense of spirituality is one thing they said about saints. The person being interviewed said, the point about saints in my mind is that they are models for human behaviour. And he said the trouble is with some of the churches, they've sort of pushed the saints out of the realm of being mentors for humans and into the realm of the unattainable. And he said that's one of the saddest things for me, because saints were human. They were human men and women and lived and breathed and loved on the face of the earth. So that really did reflect to me my own innate sense of my connection to my spirituality. And that is that humans are a vital part of this. It's not just, the drudgery that it is to be human and then the magnificence of everything else, the saints and God and the angels, that we're all threaded together in this experience and expression of what it means to be a human. And I feel it's interesting that it just always comes out in my writing of wanting to address those we might consider as iconic, but not to bring them down to size, to elevate the position and the potentiality of what it means to be humans, that underlying sense of faith or spirituality or whatever you call it. I hope that's answered the question for you on what that is for me, and in writing this novel, where that lies in the novel.
All right, before you go, a couple of quick fire questions. If you had to recommend one book to our listeners to read this summer, apart from your own, everyone go and read One Illumined Thread, what would you recommend?
If people are interested in this subject, I highly recommend Women in Connection and women's point of view. Barbara Kingsolver's The Poisonwood Bible is an utter sheer delight. She gave me a lot of strength in the writing of One Illumined Thread, because she made the comment that it took her 30 years to feel ready and anchored enough to write that book, The Poisonwood Bible. So I highly recommend that.
All right, we loved this novel so much, and I don't want to rush you, but is there anything else in the works that you could give us a hint about? Yes. Can you give us a little teaser?
There is another similarly veined notion of monks on a journey to outback South Australia, because they believe that the next Dalai Lama will reincarnate out there. Oh. So that's a very quirky intersection, again, of spirituality and the heart of outback of Australia, set around Kaditanda Lake Eyre in the north of South Australia, this vast, mostly dry salt lake. And there is actually two really exciting children's books that I'm putting together that focus on language and keeping the richness and vitality of language alive. And then there's also another adult novel that is a very different kind of love story, but is the intersection of spirituality, philosophy and science. So yeah, just a bit.
Oh, they all sound delightful. Oh, I'm so excited. Well, Sally Colin James, it has been a pleasure chatting to you today. One Illumined Thread is out now wherever you get your books, and you can find more from Sally at her website, sallycolinjames.com. Thank you so much for being on Hopeful Club.
Thank you, Georgia. Blessings to you, my darling.